Now, I know that Lin Dan beats Lee Chong Wei most of the time. I know that Lin Dan has a better record than Lee Chong Wei, but I think there's no other badminton player as inspirational as Lee Chong Wei. And I saw this new video that I want to share with you guys because it gave me all the feels. Hey guys, I'm Badminton Becky, and if this is your first time here, I'm an American living and playing badminton in China. Please consider hitting the subscribe button and follow along on my badminton journey as I talk about all things badminton and try to improve myself to be a top player in my city. Okay, so I just saw this Lee Chong Wei video and I wanted to tell you about it, and I kind of wanted to promote it because it only has 2,000 views on YouTube, but like this should be a huge interview because it's incredibly impressive. It's on some channel called The Interview. It's a Malaysian interview channel. I will put the link in the description box below, and it's a 30-minute interview, so it is not short. But it's really good. And the interviewer, I think she's friends with Lee Chong Wei. She asked some really good questions, and honestly, he's just so honest. It's awesome. Like, he admits when Mamoto was banned from the sport for the year, he couldn't compete the Olympics. And Lee Chong Wei admits that he was really relieved about that because Mamoto was a real challenger. And if Mamoto was kicked off for a while, he couldn't challenge him that year. That's so refreshing and awesome to hear from a pro player. Also, he talks about aging. Honestly, I can kind of relate to Lee Chong Wei a little bit because he's closer to my generation than most players. I love Victor Axelsen, I love Tai Tzu-Yin, but they are definitely a much different generation than I am. They were born like after I graduated high school. So Lee Chong Wei talks about some of the struggles about being a pro player as you're getting older and how difficult it is. And as an older person, I really appreciate that as well. But the thing I appreciate most is when he's talking about his recent health problems. In the video, he talks about when he was first diagnosed by the doctors and how he found out that he had nose cancer, and then he had to tell his mom, and he like called his coach to come to his house and tell him. And he said like how his wife was crying and he was crying, his mom was crying, and he said like he just cried and he felt really bad. I kind of love that, kind of the crying and the sadness part, but I love that like Lee Chong Wei just talks about that. But he cries and he's still super sad, but then he thinks like, what can I do? Like, I need to understand what's happening. I need to try to help myself. I love that's like Lee Chong Wei's style, right? Like, he loses to Lin Dan, but then he just like comes back the next time and he tries his 10,000% hardest. And I think that's really super inspiring for me to see him kind of have all these setbacks, but then just keep attacking it, but acknowledging the sadness and acknowledging the fear, but continuing on with it. I also love how he talks about when he's in the hospital and he was so sick and he could like barely eat anything because his throat was really swollen. He still watched badminton, and thinking about badminton like cheered him up and got him through kind of the really tired, hard times. That's what I do when I'm feeling sick or like physically unwell. I just kind of like think about badminton or watch badminton, and it makes me happy. So I think it's awesome that it makes him happy too. I haven't told the story of how I met Lee Chong Wei on this blog yet, although you probably know because I put the picture like everywhere on the internet because it's like so exciting. It was at the Fuzhou Open. I went 2 years ago, and Aja and I, we went early, so we had lots of time to kind of wander around outside at those little pop-up stores. I had a Victor, Li Ning, and Yannick's pop-up store. So I go to the Yannick store and I buy like a shirt, you know, one of the competition shirts, and we're like walking around, and I go to the Li Ning store and we come out and there's a little line of people forming, and at the front of the line is some chairs and a table. And I say, oh, are there players gonna autograph? And I just said, yeah. And I said, oh, let's go get in line. So we get in line, and this woman comes up to me and she says, do you have any Li Ning stuff? And I said, because my strings are Li Ning strings on my badminton rackets. I don't actually have any other Li Ning stuff. And she said, okay, and she walks away. And then I was thinking for a minute, and I said to Aja, oh, does she mean like Li Ning stuff right now? Because I didn't have anything on me at the time. And Aja said, yeah, they can only sign Li Ning stuff. And I said, well, I don't have any, and it's kind of expensive. I didn't want to buy any. So we like left, and we were walking around, Then I saw at the Yonex store, there was a line beginning to form. There was not many people, and there was kind of a guard at the head of the line. But I had bought a Yonex thing. I had bought the shirt. It was like a $20 shirt. I go to the guard. I kind of opened my bag. Everybody was like showing their receipt or that he was looking in their bag. I just kind of held up my bag and he waved me through. I think it was foreigner for the win because he didn't know I could speak Chinese, and it's just like easier not to talk to a foreigner sometimes. Now, Aja didn't come in line with me. He just kind of let me go ahead by myself, and I think that was probably a pretty smart move because the guy probably would have stopped Aja and they would have stopped both of us and they would have talked to us because I was in that line fraudulently. But I had no idea what was going on. I was the dumb foreigner. There's a picture that Aja took, and it's me standing in line, and you can see behind me there's a sign that says like Lee Chong Wei signing, but I hadn't noticed that sign, and I'm still like, I'm just waiting for some athlete. I had no idea who was coming. Meanwhile, I'm waiting in line forever. The guard totally closes off the line. There's maybe 15 of us, 20 of us total, not so many. Nobody can come in. There's people arguing with the guard, like the manager of the Yonex store is coming in. He's not letting anyone in. And time is going by. I'm actually seeing a bunch of people that I recognize. The competition has already started. At some point, I realize who is going to be signing at the store, and I get crazy excited. And a crowd gets bigger and bigger hanging around outside the store. Suddenly, like, this black SUV pulls up. People start screaming. It's like Beyonce has arrived somewhere. Like, I've never seen people so crazy and ravenous, and everyone's kind of like screaming for Lee Chong Wei, and they kind of get the car in, and they put a blockade so people can't get in to touch him, and he comes out and everybody's screaming, Chong Wei, Chong Wei, Chong Wei, and he kind of waves and he's ushered into the store. And then there's just this kind of flurry of activity, and my line starts to move, but I'm towards the end of it, and there's just like photographers and, you know, the whole like crew, like the Yonex crew that's taking care of him, and everything's just quite chaotic and crazy. We're lining up outside the little pop-up store, and as I get closer, I see him seemingly overwhelmed with attention. There's like 3 photographers standing around taking pictures. 2 people stretch out the shirt, and one woman's like shaking the golden pen so it's fresh, and she gives it to him fresh each time. And he's signing, and meanwhile, the person that he's signing, they're like doing selfies, or they're asking like their friends in line to take pictures with them. And like nobody was actually looking at Lee Chong Wei and talking to Lee Chong Wei. And being a foreigner in China, honestly, like this happens to me a lot. A lot of people will just see me as like a prop or like a little cute doll that they can do whatever they want to and they can take pictures with and put their arm around. And it's very frustrating because I oftentimes feel like kind of like I'm an animal, like I'm some cute little animal that they want a picture with. And I kind of felt like that's how Lee Chong Wei was being treated. So I just said to myself, you know what? I'm just gonna like look him in the eye. I'm just gonna say, how are you? I'm not gonna be crazy. I'm not gonna be like putting cameras in his face, and I'm not gonna be taking like selfies and stuff. So I just got up there and they stretch out the shirt, but I looked at him like straight in the eyes and I was like, hey, like, how are you? And he goes, oh, where are you from? And I said, I'm from America, but I live in China. And he says, oh, can you speak Chinese? And I said, yeah. And we spoke a little Chinese, and I said that I play badminton in China and that I have a coach, and you know that I admired him, and he was just so nice to me. And we spoke English, and his English is very cute, and he was just friendly, and he actually stopped signing, and he actually like put his hands down, and he like started talking to me, and I was talking to him, and we just had this little, you know, 4-minute conversation. But he was really nice, and after we talked for a couple minutes, I said, do you mind if I take a picture? And he was like, no, of course not. So I just kind of held out my phone and I took that selfie that you've seen so many times. I love his badminton playing, and I love Lin Dan's badminton playing, but I respect Lee Chong Wei like a million times more than Lin Dan. Lin Dan is an amazing player and definitely deserves to go down in history. But I think Lee Chong Wei is more of an inspiration. I think Lee Chong Wei might be the most inspirational badminton player ever. And I think people that don't know anything about badminton could also be inspired by Lee Chong Wei. I just wish, you know, again, I just wish badminton was bigger and got more attention. But I want to encourage you guys to watch this video because it's on like a Malaysian interview channel, so I guess not a lot of people in the badminton world saw it. So I will put a link in the description below. So what do you think about Lee Chong Wei? Has he like personally inspired you like he's inspired me? Or who is your most inspiring player? Because obviously there's a lot of players that are very inspiring. I'm just connecting with the Lee Chong Wei, you know, him struggling with his health, him getting older, like that's my jam. So, and no matter what happens with him at the Olympics, or if he can join or if he can't, he's so inspiring that I think he will continue to inspire long after he's retired and long after he stopped playing the sport. And he totally deserves it.